You're listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk. Number 367.
Hello and welcome back to the Outdoors Station. And yes, it's been a while, hasn't it? Have you missed me? Firstly, I just want to say thanks to all those faithful listeners and customers who have been very patient, but equally keenly encouraging me to do more podcasts just as soon as I had the time. Now, the last few months since, November 2013 at Backpacking Light have been extremely busy, and the knock-on effect has been, of course, less and less time to do interviews and videos during the winter period. One thing, of course, has been the weather. We all know exactly how wet it's been. And the ground around us here now is still absolutely sodden, even though the rain, thankfully, has stopped. The second has been building work and prep for our very own first lightweight outdoor show. It's March 2014 as I record this, and our units at Backpacking Light, which we moved into last year, are a couple of Dutch barns. Now, for people who don't know what that is, a Dutch barn looks like a small aircraft hangar, and it's typical building you see on a farm complex. Now, the complex, the units that we've moved into, obviously they've all been changed into commercial units. One of which was complete and we could just walk straight in, which is great, but the second one was completely bare. So these last few months we've been juggling packing parcels in the morning and getting ourselves sorted and doing all our usual internet activities with nipping next door and building walls and plasterboarding and painting and preparing the room. Anyway, the aim is to have this all finished for our big lightweight outdoor show, which is due on April the 26th, Saturday, April the 26th, 2014. So we have a large indoor area, indoor hall, for demos and displays for all the brands who are coming and supporting us. Now, I do hope people can fit time into their diary and pop down to Malvern. If you're obviously in the Midlands, it's not a bad journey. We're only about 10-15 minutes off the M5. But if you want to stay, we have a truly wonderful campsite, Blackmore Caravan Park, which is only 200 metres away. So a lot of people are already phoning to see if they've got space, and I can assure you they've got loads of space to make a weekend of it in sunny Malvern. Come and see us on the Saturday and go for a walk on the hills on the Sunday. A lovely way to pass the time. Anyway, the best part of it, of course, is not only are we 200 yards away from the campsite, the pub and the village pond and fantastic butchers is only a further 200 metres. So it's a truly wonderful traditional English village with all the appropriate accessories, pub and post office and duck pond. So we're putting a lot of effort into promoting that event. Please come along if you can. If you can't and you know somebody who'd be interested, please pass it on. Of course, it's all on the website, and you're bound to see lots of items that you'll only ever see on the internet. Certainly things you won't see on the high street. Plus, of course, it's free parking and free tea and coffee. And if you're lucky, you might even get one of Rosie's buns. Anyway, let's move on to the content of this interview. We'll start with a brief story. Now, many years ago, I was on holiday in France with the family, with Rose and the two girls, and it must have been 10 or 15 years ago at least. And we were chilled. We were chilled, as you do when you're on holiday. But sadly, as children do, they were bored. Now, I'd recently picked up a leaflet on water divining. And I'd sort of glanced through it and taken it on board. There wasn't an awful lot to it. Anyway, well, one thing led to another. We cut some fresh hazel twigs, which is something it recommended, into a V shape. and holding it in a specific way, Rose, I, Naomi and Beth then went wandering across the associated nearby field, just for a bit of fun really, to see what happened. Well, we weren't expecting anything to happen, and we were all, well, shocked initially and then just extremely curious when this twig, which was perfectly stable in our hands, suddenly rotated quite forcefully and literally did a complete circle in our hands when we walked over a certain spot. Now, it wasn't just one of us. All of us did it. 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And it was like, no, we must be influencing this hazel twig to do this. So we then blindfolded ourselves and one at a time did it again, zigzagging roughly over the area, and the twig completely reacted. Right. Well, moving on a couple of years, we tried exactly the same thing with a couple of L-shaped copper rods, which we'd again picked up somewhere at a car boot or something, I think it was. First of all up on the Malvern Hills, and then over at Avebury Stones. Now, for overseas listeners, these Avebury Stones particularly are as important as Stonehenge. It's a very very important Neolithic site. Anyway, once again, these rods were extremely definitive by the way they moved. We held them parallel in front of us, and as soon as we went through the stones, they opened quite forcefully. It wasn't just us tilting our hands, quite forcefully, and closed again. And so the whole experience left us very curious as to what we were doing and what we were picking up, but we obviously didn't know. Anyway, fast forward now to last year and our new units at Backpacking Light in Malvern, down at Hanley Swan. Once we were doing some decorating and getting ourselves sorted, we sat outside on the seat and had a cup of coffee, and lo and behold, one of the units directly opposite the back of our unit belonged to the British Society of Dowsers. Now, in my experience, all the outdoors people I've met and interacted with over the years usually have a wide variety of interests in outdoors life, in all aspects of outdoors life, be it nature or trees or landscape or geology or whatever. So I thought some time spent learning more about this craft would be of interest to many people. Ced Jackson is the chairman of the Malvern Dowsers, and he took me out recently to a location on the Malvern Hills to demonstrate some of these skills. Now, of course, naturally, it rained, and so while we were waiting for it to ease off, I wanted to ensure I used the correct terminology before we started. So I asked him, is it dowsing, dowsing, or divining?
Dowsing is the general word. Divining is sometimes used in terms of water dowsing, where people are specifically specialising in the search and location of water.
Could you describe what it actually entails?
Well, the simplest one is to refer to water dowsing, which is what most people will have heard of. And basically there, you use tools to enhance your perception. So you can find water, and you can find the depth of water, the amount of water, the purity of water. But those general skills, which are about finding things, as the old Yorkshire term is, it's a way of finding out, as it were, you can use for other things such as lost people, lost objects, for archaeology dowsing in the field, and dowsing for health.
And how is it viewed by sort of the scientific community, the people that like hands-on results and hands-on things that they can measure? Because obviously there are people in the dowsing world that are making a good living from finding water and minerals and so on. How do you correlate to that to people with that interest, that question in their mind?
The big money is made by people looking for minerals. Now, the oil exploration companies, etc., don't talk about using dowsers because they want to maintain their credibility. But there are people, English people, who get flown out to various parts of the world, and sometimes they dowse and locate large quantities of oil or gas. Sometimes they can actually dowse from aeroplanes, interestingly. Now, the thing is that this sounds a bit crazy, but of course, when you're exploring, you're spending a great deal of money, and anything which increases your chances of locating what you're looking for is well worth it. Dowsers are cheap. Oil drilling and water drilling is expensive. If you want to drill water in a field or something, even if it's just a drill on the back of a Land Rover, you might be spending 5,000 quid for the day. So anything that increases your chances is worth it, but it's often not spoken about.
I see. And do you know many people actually do this?
There are not very many what you would call strictly water dowsers, because there isn't that much call for it, especially recently. But they are in demand where there is people, where farmers, for example, want to have their own source of water, or brewing, or something like that. A farmer called me in because he'd put in a piped source of water across his land. He'd buried these polypropylene pipes, but he couldn't remember where he'd put them.
Right.
So I went and found the pipes, and he was very happy. But I would say that there's a very small number of professional water dowsers, maybe less than 30 or 40 in Britain as a whole.
Right.
But there's lots of us who dowse. We can find water, but if you're a professional water dowser, you need to be able to find it in sufficient quantities, sufficient purity, not 500,000 miles down into the earth, not separated from the surface by a layer of impenetrable granite. And you want it to be there all the year round. You don't want it disappearing in the summer.
So this now leads us on to the people that, like myself, I've dabbled in it and had seen results that I can't put my finger on, but there were definite results, and they're the same for all the family that tried the same thing. So the question I have now is exactly what you just alluded to. How does a dowser, working with whatever tools they're working with, ascertain the difference between a stream right beneath their feet and something that's more pure, or a reservoir or whatever?
There are two basic models of dowsing. One is that you go to a location and you look for something at a location, like you look for water, and that we can call that the radiation model. So that if you walk over a stream, then you will somehow pick something up. That will be amplified by the hand tools that you're holding, perhaps swinging to the right, swinging up and down, whatever it is. And by then you can locate what it is that you're looking for. You might then use another tool to ascertain the depth, the rate of flow, whether it's there all the year or not. You might use a pendulum for that. But with both of those exercises, you are working at a mental level. You're picking something up, and then you're using another tool, the rod or the pendulum, to emphasize what you're picking up so you can perceive it in ordinary consciousness.
So it is about the person picking up the signals and the tool amplifying it, rather than the other way around?
Yes. Some people thought that it was the tools that were picking the thing up. So there's a famous case of, I forget the lady's name, where she read a book about dowsing, realised that it was the tools that moved, and so she had a wicker chair, so she put the L-rods into the wicker chair, and then she asked it questions.
Right.
And of course the apocryphal story is that the rods moved in answer to her question. But basically it's you that are moving. You are making very, very small movements of your muscles, say your wrist muscles, and that is then emphasised by a long dowsing rod, so you're very much aware, you can see what's going on. But it's basically small muscle movements.
Right, because I mean, as I said earlier on, when we dabbled with it, they were large L rods, and we were definitely, as a group of family of us, definitely saying to ourselves, well, I'm looking at the rods and I feel that I must be influencing them, as opposed to being receptive to whatever it is we were receptive to. So we actually did it blindfold as well, which was an interesting exercise. That's when it got really eerie, because we had results. And it was all over the same spot as we were walking back and forth. So how does one, if somebody's been introduced to this for the first time and considering it as something to a pastime of some nature, how do you control your body and your hands then, so that you are not influencing the signal generators or the signal receivers?
Well, it is you that's making the rods move. It is your muscle movements that's doing that. But by having a little protocol, a preparation ritual of what your posture is, how you hold the rods, how you hold your body, what you're thinking about, you can screen out the surface thoughts and just tune in with more or less the unconscious. So it's a little process, takes 30 seconds, and that gets the surface things out of the way. The big thing is to know what it is you're looking for and to be clear. So if you're looking for water, you need to know how much water you're looking for, how near the surface it is, whether it's going to be there all year long or just in the winter. Because there's no point in just finding water. You need to find sufficient quantities. You need to find sufficient quantities of water and relatively easily accessible water. And if you're using dowsing for other things, say for health, you need to know, are you looking for the source of the problem? Are you looking for the intervention? What is it you're looking for? You must define that as much as possible.
Would you compare it then to a bit like yoga, in the sense that when you're doing yoga, you're settling your mind and clarifying your thought and calming your body, so that it become more of a receptive tool? Is that a fair comparison?
Yes, I think that's right. Settling yourself, calming yourself, letting things come in from a deeper level. But you have to also have focus, so you know what it is you're looking for, so that you know when you're getting a reaction. It's the difference that shows that there is a difference. The rods move to show that your question has been answered, and therefore you must get the question right.
So what's better to talk about now? Is it better to talk about the tools, or would it be better to talk about the mental process in a bit more detail?
Well, let's talk about the tools first. We can talk the tools outside
when
it's not raining.
Yes, yeah.
The traditional tool is what we nowadays call the V-rod, which is the metal version of a hazel rod, the forked twig, in other words. The forked twig is fine as a tool. The only problem with it is that it does tend to dry out and snap, and therefore you have to find another one. So we now use wire, 2 pieces of wire bound at one end, to produce a V-rod, which you hold in both hands to indicate where you found water.
Now, there's obviously, instantly you can grip that in several different ways.
Yeah.
Is there a particular way that's more sensitive to than holding it by the fist?
We tend to hold it so that you can increase the tension easily. And with the grip I'm holding at the moment, you can increase it in 2 ways. You can push the hands together, or you can turn the rods in a more circular direction to increase the tension. Because with all dowsing tools, you want to get it, as it were, hovering on the edge, so that it might flick up or turn to the right or go clockwise or anti-clockwise. But you want it hovering just on the edge, so that the very small movement of the muscles will make it go in a way which you can see where it's gone.
Right, yeah, so in other words, as you say, it's just on the tipping point, that one slight influence, it'll be an obvious result. Yeah. And to explain this grip to people, as I'm looking at it, actually, I'd call it a chopstick grip, yes. Because it's exactly as you would hold a chopstick in your right hand, and the same on the left hand.
Absolutely.
And forming this sort of compressed V, as you say.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what this material is made out of. I mean, I've used a hazel twig, and that was when I got the biggest results. Yeah. But does it have to be copper and plastic and wire? Can it be anything? Could it be like a plastic coat hanger or a plastic curtain rail?
Yes, it can. Some people obviously have their preferences, but basically all tools can be used. I have here a typical metal coat hanger, and that can be used. It has certain advantages because it shows you whether you're holding it exactly vertically, exactly horizontally, or what.
Oh, okay.
You see, I'll just show you anyway. So, like, here's the coat hanger. Now, and you put a straw on the end of that to emphasise.
Oh, I see. Okay, so the coat hanger is being held. It's a wire one held vertically.
Wire one held vertically, being held. It's the long piece of the coat hanger which is being held towards the bottom of the long piece. Right. The advantage of this is that it's very, very cheap. Mm. Also, if you hold the long piece vertically, you can see that it's vertically, then naturally, if you straighten out the hook part of the coat hanger, then this will obviously be horizontal. Right. So you've immediately got a horizontality and a verticality. Mm-hmm. And the trouble that many people find when they start dowsing is with the grip, and they hold it so that the rods are hanging down too much, which makes it hard work for the rods to move, or they're pointing upwards, in which case they swing about all over the place. Right. So doing something like that, you've got a nice basic grip quite easily. You can hold it as a fist, or you can hold it with the tips of the fingers.
Right, and that gives you a result, does it?
Yeah.
Wow.
You're listening to The Outdoor Station, the home of UK-based audio and video podcasts for lovers of the great outdoors everywhere.
If I start with the posture in terms of using the rods, the posture is what's often called John Wayne does Tai Chi, okay?
Okay.
So you have John Wayne with his knees slightly bent, reaching down for his 6 guns and pulling down. His upper arm is vertical. After he's drawn the 6 gun, the lower arm is horizontal.
Right.
So he's got an L-shape arms. You want to be able to have a slight separation from the arm from the body, so you want to be able to put an orange into the armpit and hold it like that. And then you've got, you also want to have a good gap between the 2 hands, as if it were the classic 1950s cowboy holding 6 guns, as it were. And then you have to program the rods, or you program yourself to influence the rods. So traditionally, we've asked for the rods to cross when you get to the relevant point.
Mm-hmm.
Increasingly nowadays, we ask for the rods to open when we get to the relevant point, because it makes it easier to look along the outstretched arms to see where the line is going that you're crossing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you you program yourself. You're looking for water, let's say, or for a pipe, and you say, please show me when I get to the pipe by opening.
Right.
So you then walk slowly towards the pipes, and when you get there, they begin to open. And then you fine-tune it by asking for your arms to be fully open when you're exactly on top of the pipe.
Right.
And you also ask for your arms to begin to close up again after you've gone past the pipe.
So this asking then.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get my head around it, and also to help people listening to this to visualise. So you're not so much telling yourself or whatever you're telling, or I mean, who are you asking? Is it sort of you've cleared your mind? You're now asking yourself to be receptive to this particular thing that you're asking for, or are you asking the great infinite sort of thing?
The latter, really, the great infinite. A famous 20th century dowser, Hamish Miller, referred to it as the management.
Right.
So he used to talk to the management and ask the management when he was asking to be shown something in particular. But basically it's the universe or whatever, which is what you're interacting with, because you're interacting, say, with the field, with the water in the field, and the water knows where it is, as it were.
Right.
The land knows where it is.
Yeah.
You don't know where it is. So you're asking, you're not quite sure what you're asking, but you're asking the other to show you what you're looking for.
Right, okay. So you're not sort of going, oh please, like a begging type of thing, or just demanding. It's an ask.
It's a polite request.
A polite request. Okay.
Yes. So you do say, please show me, and afterwards, after you've been shown, you say thank you.
Right.
Now you might get some funny looks, but it confirms this dialogue, really.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, obviously it works. It's just hearing it cold and trying to analyse it all at the same time. Okay. So that's the first couple of tools. Are the rest of them pretty well sort of L-shaped rod?
So this L rod was developed by an American, and the horizontal part of the L rod is made up of a telescopic tube. The advantage of this is that you can set what you're looking for and create an association with the length of tube. So if you're looking for water, you might have the rods open to 1 foot. If you're looking for metal, 2 foot, or something else, 6 inches. And then you'll say, please show me the water, or whatever it is you're looking for. You'd set the length of the telescopic rod to that, and then you will only get a reaction to what you're looking for, precisely.
What happens if you got it at the wrong setting and you find gold?
Well, then you're quite happy. But basically, you develop an inner template.
Right.
In the same way that, any skill that you have, you're used, say, to driving a car. You get into the car in a certain way. You put the key into the ignition. Then you do something else. Then you do something else. So this is like just fine tuning what it is you're looking for. It's a visual aid. Some rods have a little compartment attached, where you might put an example of the substance you're looking for. So you might have a little compartment into which you put water.
Right.
and that's technically known as a witness.
Okay.
So it helps you to focus on what it is you're looking for.
Right. Okay. I mean, that's sort of, I can understand that logical part, but the extending one, different.
So that's like, you know...
I would have just thought the longer it was out, the more responsive, subtle influences would show.
It would. That is also the case, but you have a hierarchy of desires and requests, as it were.
Okay.
I mean, during the Vietnam War, the Americans used dowsing amongst some of their special forces to find Viet Cong tunnels.
Right.
And they used very long rods. That was just what they...
Yeah.
There's various myths about it.
And did it actually work, that sort of thing?
Oh, yeah, there are photos of American soldiers holding long dowsing rods.
Good grief. Yeah, a well-kept secret. Any other tools that we want to talk about before we go on to the next bit?
Let's see. Let's talk about the... where has it gone? Oh, yes. So this is what we call a wand or a bobber. And this is a single piece of metal, flexible metal, which you gently rock, holding it horizontally, you gently rock it up and down. Nice rhythmic motion. And I have put on the end of this rod a table tennis ball so that people can see, again, visually emphasises the movement. So as you can see, it's just now nicely going up and down. And you can use this in a room, say. You stand in the centre of the room, get it going up and down, and then you would say, please show me when I get to the wiring, which of course is hidden in the walls.
Okay.
So what you would do is you would turn yourself round, and when it got to the wiring, it would go into a nice circular movement.
Right, okay.
So then you would reset. You always have to reset at the end, and then you would do it again. So this is quite useful for where there would be, you could see something in a line of sight if you had X-ray vision.
Well, certainly wiring in pipes and walls would be very useful. Yeah.
You can also stand on a slight elevation over a field and go around and say, please show me the water or something like that. Oh, there it is.
Right, okay. And is that as in it's directly beneath your feet or it's over there?
It's over there. It's where this thing is pointing at.
Okay.
So it's a pointing tool, really.
So it's more of a horizontal version of the tools rather than these sort of vertical tools.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, all this is part and parcel of going on to what we've been talking about and going to the next stage, which for our general range of listeners being interested in various aspects of the outdoors. As I explained in the introduction, the Dowsing Society is next door to my offices, which is where the introduction came from. But in particular, I was curious to know how the dowsing skills would be used or could be used, it would be of interest to people with outdoor pursuits, outdoor pastimes. And one thing that's said as suggested, which would be quite interesting, is to actually use it for surveying. Is that the right word?
Yes, you can use surveying or mapping. One example is that you can teach yourself, using an L-rod, to find north without a compass. Okay. So you can say, please show me north, and it will point to where north is.
Right, okay.
It takes a little bit of training, but you can train yourself with your compass. The thing with dowsing is you always start with things you can see, and then you move on to things you can't see. Right. That's the progression.
Okay.
You can use it to find the foundations of buildings. You can use it to trace underground water. A good way to start, in a sense, if you're starting to dowse at home, is to get out a map, an ordnance survey map, and to trace the course of a river on a map. Right. Okay. Now, using a pendulum or a rod. Yeah.
This is a different level of dowsing. Now,
there is also map dowsing, but that would be the first stage of map dowsing, getting used to working with dowsing tools on a map. But you can increase your sensitivity in terms of how you hold a rod, etc., or a pendulum, just by tracing something on the map.
Well, today we're, as you can probably hear from the background noise, we're all sitting in the car waiting for the rain to finish to look for some foundation. But I know, myself included, a lot of people who do wild camping would be camping probably near tumuluses or standing stones and that type of thing. Now, if they were wanting to pass some time doing some dowsing around that type of history, what questions could they be asking for in that environment? Just a matter of interest before we step outside.
You could ask to be shown any any traces left by man who had lived on that site, or worked on that site. So you could ask to be shown tumuluses or old structures, old habitations, etc. In the same way that you would ask to be shown water. So you just say, please show me when I get to a tumulus or something like that. Or please show me in which direction the nearest tumulus is.
Well, we've actually done, as I say, dabbled, but we dabbled down at Avebury Stones.
Oh, yes.
And we found really obvious results. All of us blindfold in the same spot, walking through some of the circles. But that was as far as our knowledge and experience went. But what should I have been looking for or asking when we were down there to get sort of results? What do you think you would do? I
think the difficulty with dowsing at somewhere like Avebury is that there are just so many things going on. It's like NASA's missile headquarters sort of thing. Right. So there's things have been put there for this reason and put there for that reason, and then they've been refined. I would start in a friendly local field with perhaps one old building in it. Right. Which is why I suggested we come here today. So you can dip your toes in the water, get some confirmation that something is going on in your dowsing, and your confidence will build, and then your skills will generally build.
Well, that said, perfect timing. The rain has stopped dropping down on the car roof, so let's head outside and let's have a go and see if we can find this building.
Okay.
Since 2005, over 5 million people have listened to the Outdoors Station audio podcasts, and over 1 million have watched the videos. You can subscribe to the Outdoors Station in numerous ways. Visit the website and select the link to your chosen social media network.
So we now left the car. It's thankfully stopped raining, and we've come down to the sports field where there's some apparently small buildings which have long since gone. But we're sort of going to have a look round and see if we can find the foundations using the dowsing method. So Sed's going to talk us through what he's doing, and then I'm going to try and replicate it.
Okay, so we're near where we think one of the changing rooms used to be. So I'm going to try and find where the building used to be using my dowsing rods. So I get into basic position, I have my knees slightly bent, I'm holding one L rod in one hand, one in another hand, and I'm going to walk slowly towards where I think the building was, asking to be shown where it was. And what will happen is that when I get to where it was, the rods will hopefully open, indicating that I found the building. So I'm now walking very slowly towards where I think the building was. As I get closer, the rods begin to move, and yes, I've now found the edge of the building, and we've got the rods nicely at 180 degrees. The advantages of getting the rods to open is that I can now look along the line of the rods to see where the outline of the building used to be.
All immediately comes to mind is Time Team, eat your heart out. You know?
Well, that's right.
They spend all that money on geofizz. Why don't they get a few dowsers down there?
So the corner.
Yeah, so finding a corner has got to be surely the key aspect, certainly on doors and that sort of thing. Yeah. Can you narrow it down to that?
Okay. Well, if I just walk over the wall, as it were, both rods will open. If I walk to the corner of a building, one rod will open to indicate that I've found the wall, and the other one won't, because it will be going beyond the corner.
Right, and you're asking it to show you this.
Yes, I say, please show me the corner of the building. So again, I walk towards the building where I think the corner is, and yes, one rod is opening, and the other isn't, showing I've found the corner of the building.
Well, that's so accurate. It's eerie. It really is spot on. So I've got to have a go with this. Now, what do you suggest I do? Use the rods or the V rod?
Which would you like?
Well, I must admit, when we did it with the hazel twig, and it was so responsive. I must try the V rod. So I'm just going to put the recorder in a position I can use both hands. So, talk me through it now.
Okay, so if you'd like to choose a position from where you'll start dowsing.
Okay, now I'm going to be creeping rather than striding, yes, aren't I? Yes. So let's just do that then. I'm away from the area.
Because you need to give the universe time to kick into your brain, as it were.
That could take a while.
Yeah. So assume the posture.
Okay, posture, John Wayne.
Wayne.
Arms parallel.
Oranges in the armpits.
Oranges in the armpits.
Yeah. Nice horizontal position, that's good.
Chopstick hold on the ends of the...
Just adjust the tension a bit so you're
I can see what you mean about the tension. You push it in and it's just on the edge, isn't it?
Just on the edge, yeah.
Lovely, okay. So now the rods are sort of horizontal.
Bob's using a V-rod and it's nice and horizontal at the moment.
Right, okay. So I'm saying out loud, show me where the edge...
Please show me the edge of the building.
Please show me the edge of the building. Okay,
so start walking slowly towards...
Creeping forward.
Yeah. And as you get towards it, even before you get to it, the rod begins to flip upwards.
It's starting to rise, and it's now... it's now vertical.
It's now vertical.
And a positive erection, so if I walk away and across the area, does it drop down? Yes, indeed, it does.
V-rods tend not to so much. L-rods, you can certainly, they'll open, you can go through it quite quickly. You can go sort of open and it'll close afterwards.
Right.
V-rods tend not to do that so much.
Okay. So,
if you're going to take another pass now, you need to just clear the mind and tap the rods just to...
Yeah, what I saw you doing this earlier on. What's this tapping the rods business?
I'm starting afresh.
Just resetting sort of thing. Okay. Can I use it to find doors and windows?
You could do, yeah. There may not have been any windows.
Okay.
But we think we know where the door is, so let's try the door. Sorry.
Okay. Let's. So do I walk along the line of?
There's two ways of doing it. You could try each part individually of the wall and see if the door was there, or you could walk along the length of the wall and see where you get a reaction.
Okay. Well, let's walk along the length of the wall where we think the wall is.
At the end of one end of the wall.
Oranges under the arm. John Wayne at the side.
Settle
tension on the... and close my mind, close my eyes.
And you asked to be shown where the door was.
Please show me where the door was.
Yeah. So we're now proceeding along the edge of the building. Say aloud.
Please show me where the door was.
And you're getting a reaction.
Lo and behold, right in the middle of the building.
Yeah.
And can I keep going?
Will it
drop?
What you could do is you could start from the other end.
Oh, I see. Right, okay.
I mean, obviously this is the first time we've done this, so you'll get more accurate the more you practice.
Right. Well, it's like everything else in life, unfortunately.
So reset.
So reset the rods.
Yeah.
I have to say, it's a lovely pastime on a day like this, isn't it, really?
And you should say thank you for what's
Thank you.
So.
Right, okay. So again, arms, positions, parallel, tension. Please show me where the door was.
Yeah. So we're going along the side of the building, keeping a close eye on the rod to see what's happening. And it is beginning to move upwards and we're beginning to get a strong response now. Yeah.
Right,
There we are. Yeah.
So between us then, we've actually, let's just hold this. Between us then, we've actually resolved that the building was, 20, 30 foot long, and there was a doorway in the centre of this wall. You found the corner. Thank you. I mean, it's a fascinating thing to watch. I mean, do you get many people sort of coming to the... I mean, obviously, you're chairman of the Malvern branch.
That's right, yes.
And I assume there are lots of branches around the country.
There's about 30 branches affiliated to the British Society of Dowsers. Right. And if people have any queries, they can always just write to the British Society of Dowsers at Hanley Swan. Right. And that will reach them, yeah.
Or give it to me and I'll pass it to them in the office next door. What I was going to say, though, what is the typical makeup of the societies? What sort of age range and interests? I mean, do you have a full age range, or is it's a particular type of person that joins you? The
traditional dowser was an old guy with a flat hat, perhaps semi-retired. There are still a number of those in that category. But with the development of other aspects of dowsing, like dowsing for health, there's a whole slew of younger people who've moved in as well. But I would say it's mostly middle-aged on the whole, right. And some younger people, yeah. A number of people have either come in for health purposes, to develop their own skills or to address their own health issues. And a number of people have come in because they've got interested in archaeology, again through things like Time Team on television. But what we have a general term called Earth Energies, which is about tumuli, burial mounds, that sort of thing, stone circles, and a number of people are very interested in those and trying to find out what they can about those.
So, this is part of this petal interest you were describing earlier on, that there are sort of... it's based around dowsing, but there are separate petals that follow a certain interest.
Yes.
Sorry.
Well, no, there's a small number of skills associated with what you might call the core of the daisy, use of the tools, all of which can be mastered very simply, and then it's the application, and those are the petals. Dowsing and archaeology, dowsing and health, dowsing and earth energies, dowsing lost objects, dowsing and water, that sort of thing.
Now, we touched earlier on map dowsing, and I found that quite interesting because obviously you are not in the presence of the location and picking up any reception from that, but you are obviously asking something of the map. Now, you mentioned OS maps, because obviously our maps are the best in the world. They're full of information. But what about maps of far-flung places in America or Africa or whatever it might be that isn't as detailed? Can you still get a response from those?
Yes, you can, because you can make your own map, say, of your garden, and douse that. If you need to know where the drain pipe is and where it's going, or perhaps where you've lost your keys in the garden, or even lost your small child, if you can't find them, you might be able to find them using a hand-drawn map. Now, as I said before, most people start with a location model of dowsing. You're over the water, you're picking something up. That allows you to tune in and say, oh yes, I found the water, it is here. Then later on you might move towards an information model. Somebody knows, or the land knows. If nobody else, the land knows where the water is. Right. And so you can begin to ask those questions like, please show me. And you can use your own hand-drawn maps to do that.
Well said, it's been a fascinating exercise. Thank you very much for taking me out today and polishing the very minor arts or skills that I've got. But I'm certainly interested in knowing more. I shall make sure I pop round to the office a bit more and pick up a few more tips.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Paul.
Well, I hope you found that of interest. And of course, my thanks go to Ced Jackson for that fascinating insight and practical experience into dowsing. I have to say that the British Society of Dowsers website is well worth a visit, and you can find them on britishDowsers.org. They run courses, of course. They have meetings in groups around the country, and they have a very interesting magazine. And of course, they sell all the tools for the job. Something us outdoors people like to have the right tool for the job. Now, a year or more ago, you may remember I interviewed Warren and Esther Saunders, who were cycling around the world and taking their time, 5 or 6 years to do it. Well, they're still going, and they're currently in the United States. And they contacted me recently to say they've got a good broadband connection, so we hope to be catching up very soon with what's been going on with them for the last 12 months or more. Now, it's gone absolutely mad at that work at Backpacking Light, and I've got boxes of new and exciting stuff arriving, and I've got a list as long on my arm of videos to do on tents, new rucksacks and sleeping quilts. Now, don't forget, all of this, of course, will be on display at the Backpacking Light Lightweight Outdoor Show, 26th of April 2014 in Malvern. Details on the backpackinglight.co.uk website, and do, if you can, come and support us. It would be lovely to see you there. It should be a good crowd all round. So, the best of luck dowsing for the pot of gold after listening to this podcast, and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To hear or see more from our extensive free library, please visit theoutdoorstation.co.uk.